There are some people who say we cannot tell whether we are saved or whether all is well. They say we only can hope and trust that it is so. Well, I was there when it happened, and so I guess I ought to know. Yes, I know when Jesus saved me, saved my soul. The very moment he forgave me, made me whole. He took away my heavy burdens. Lord, he gave me peace within, peace within. Satan can't make me doubt it. Oh, I won't doubt it. It's real and I'm gonna shout it. I'm gonna shout it. I was there when it happened. And so I guess I ought to know. I don't care who tells me salvation is not real. Although the world may argue that we cannot feel the heavy burdens lifted and the vile sins gone. I was there when it happened, so I guess I ought to know. Yes, I know when Jesus saved me, saved my soul. The very moment he forgave me, made me whole. He took away my heavy burdens. Lord, he gave me peace within, peace within. Satan can't make me doubt it. I won't doubt it. It's real and I'm gonna shout it. I'm gonna shout it. I was there when it happened, so I guess I ought to know. Hello and welcome to the Bible with Briscoe. I will be your narrator, Shenandoah Briscoe, and we are going to get through the Bible in 1 year. Today is day number 86, and we're going to be covering Judges 1 through 3 and Luke 4, 1 through 30. Father, I just ask for purity in voice and articulation, so that this narration may be a blessing for you and all of those who are listening. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. And they all said, amen. Judges 1 through 3. Israel fights the remaining Canaanites. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites asked the Lord, "Who of us is to go up first to fight against the Canaanites?" The Lord answered, "Judah shall go up. I have given the land into their hands." The men of Judea then said to the Seminites, their fellow Israelites, "Come up with us into the territory allotted to us to fight against the Canaanites. We, in turn, will go with you into yours." So the Seminites went with them. When Judea attacked, the Lord gave the Canaanites and Perizzites into their hands, and they struck down 10,000 men at Bezek. It was there that they found Adon-Bezek and fought against him, putting to rout the Canaanites and Perizzites. Adon-Bezek fled, but they chased him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Then Adon-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off have picked up scraps under my table. Now God has paid me back for what I have done to them. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The men of Judea attacked Jerusalem also and took it. They put the city to the sword and set it on fire. After that, Judea went down to fight against the Canaanites living in the hill country, the Negev, and the western foothills. They advanced against the Canaanites living in Hebron, formerly called Kadesh Araba, and defeated Sheshai, Ammon, and Telamai. From there, they advanced against the people living in Debir, formerly called Kadesh Sephir. And Caleb said, I will give my daughter Akshah in marriage to the man who attacks and captured Kiritha Sephir. Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it. So Caleb gave his daughter Akshah to him in marriage. One day, when she came to Othniel, she urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, What can I do for you? She replied, Do me a specific favor. Since you have given me land in the Negev, give me also springs of water. So Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. The descendants of Moses' father-in-law, the Kenite, went up from the city of Salm. Then the people of Judea, when the people of Judea to live among the inhabitants of the desert of Judea in Negev near Arad. Then the men of Judea went with the Semonites, their fellow Israelites, and attacked the Canaanites living in Sepharth, and they totally destroyed the city. Therefore it was called Hormah. Judea also took Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, each city with its territory. The Lord was with the men of Judea. They took possession of the hill country, but they were unable to drive the people from the plains, because they had chariots filled with iron. As Moses had promised, Hebron was given to Caleb, who drove from it the 3 sons of Anak. The Benjamites, however, did not drive out the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. To this day, the Jebusites live there with the Benjamites. Now, the tribes of Joseph attacked Bethel, and the Lord was with them. When they sent men to spy out Bethel, formerly called Luz, the spies saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, Show us how to get into the city, and we will see that you are treated well. So he showed them, and they put the city to the sword, but spared the man and his whole family. He then went to the land of the Hittites, where he built a city and called it Luz, which is its name to this day. But Manasseh did not drive out the people of Beth Shan, or Tanach, or Dor, or Ibleam, or Middo, Megiddo, that's it, and their surrounding settlements. For the Canaanites were determined to live in that land. And when Israel became strong, they pressed the Canaanites into forced labor, but none drove them out completely. Nor did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer. But the Canaanites continued to live there among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the Canaanites living in Kitron or Nahalol. So these Canaanites lived among them. But Zebulun did subject them to forced labor. Nor did Asher drive out those living in Akiko, or Sidon, or Ahalaba, or Agazib, or Helabra, or Apaka, or Rehob. The Asherites lived among the Canaanites, inhabitants of the land, because they did not drive them out. Neither did Nephtali drive out those living in Beth Shemesh or Bethanath. But the Nephtalites too lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land, and those living in Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath became forced laborers for them. The Amorites confined the Dentites to the hill country, now not allowing them to come down into the plain. And the Amorites were determined also to hold out in Mount Heres, Aijalon, and Shilabim. But when the power of the tribes of Joseph increased, they too were pressed into forced labor. The boundary of the Amorites was from Scorpion Pass to Sela and beyond. The angel of the Lord at Bochim. Judges 2. The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgad to Bochim, and said, I brought you up out of Egypt, and led you into the land I swore to give to your ancestors. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall not make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall break down their altars. Yet you have disobeyed me. Why have you done this? And I have also said, I will not drive them out before you. They will become traps for you, and their gods will become snares to you. When the angel of the Lord had spoken these things to all the Israelites, the people wept aloud, and they called that place Bochim. There they offered sacrifices to the Lord. Disobedience and defeat. After Joshua had dismissed the Israelites, they went to take possession of the land, each to their own inheritance. The people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, and who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timaneth Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. After that whole generation, he had After that whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshipped various gods of the people around them. They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsook him and served Baal and the Asheroths. In his anger against Israel, the Lord gave them into the hands of raiders who plundered them. He sold them into the hands of their enemies all around, whom they were no longer able to resist. Whenever Israel went out to fight and went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to defeat them, just as he had sworn to them. They were in great distress. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hands of the raiders. Yet they would not listen to their judges, but prostituted themselves to other gods and worshipped them. They quickly turned from the ways of their ancestors, who had been obedient to the Lord's commands. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge and saved them out of the hands of their entire enemies, as long as the judge lived. For the Lord relented because of their groaning under those who oppressed and afflicted them. But when the judge died, the people returned to the ways even more corrupt than those of their ancestors, following other gods and serving and worshiping them. They refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and said, "Because this nation has violated the covenant I ordained for their ancestors and has not listened to me, I will no longer drive out before them any nation." Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it as their ancestors did. The Lord had allowed those nations to remain. He did not drive them out at once by giving them into the hands of Joshua. Judges 3. These are the nations the Lord left to test all those Israelites who had not experienced any of the wars of Canaan. He did this only to teach warfare to the descendants of the Israelites who had not had previous battle experience. The 5 rulers of the Philistines are the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites, living in Lebanon mountains, from Mount Baal Harmon to Lebo Hamath. They were left to test the Israelites to see whether they would obey the Lord's commands, which he had given their ancestors through Moses. The Israelites living among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, they took their daughters in marriage and gave their own daughters to their sons and served their gods. Othniel, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals as the Ashers. The anger of the Lord burned against Israel, so that he sold them into the hands of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram, Naharaim, to whom the Israelites were subjected for 8 years. But when they cried out to the Lord, he raised up for them a deliverer, Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, who saved them. The Spirit of the Lord came on him, so that he became Israel's judge and went to war. The Lord gave Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram, into the hands of Othniel, who overpowered him. So the land had peace for 40 years, until Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. Ehud. Again the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and because they did this evil, the Lord gave Eglon, king of Moab, power over Israel, getting the Ammonites and Amalekites to join him. Eglon came and attacked Israel, and they took possession of the city of Psalms. The Israelites were subject to Eglon, king of Moab, for 18 years. Again the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and he gave them a deliverer, Ehud, a left-handed man, the son of Gir and the Benjamite. The Israelites sent him with tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Ehud had made a double-edged sword about a cubit long, which he strapped to his right thigh under his clothing. He presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab, who was a very fat man. And after Ehud had presented the tribute, he sent on their way those who had carried it. But on reaching the stone images near Gilgad, he himself went back to Eglon and said, "Your Majesty, I have a secret message for you." The king said to his attendants, "Leave us," and they all left. Edom then approached him while he was sitting alone in the upper room of his palace, and said, "I have a message from God for you." As the king rose from his seat, Ehud reached with his left hand, drew the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into the king's belly. Even the handle sank in after the blade, and his bowels discharged. Ehud did not pull the sword out, and the fat closed in over it. Then Ehud went out to the porch. He shut the doors of the upper room behind him and locked them. After he had gone, the servants came and found the doors of the upper room locked. They said, "He must be relieving himself in the inner room of the palace." They waited to the point of embarrassment, but when he did not open the doors of the room, they took a key and unlocked them. There they saw their lord fallen to the floor, dead. While they waited, Ehud got away. He passed by the stone images and escaped to Sarir. When he arrived there, he blew a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went down with him from the hills, with him leading the way. "Follow me," he ordered, "for the Lord has given Moab, your enemy, into your hands." So they followed him down and took possession of the fords of the Jordan that led to Moab. They allowed no one to cross over. At that time they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all vigorous and strong. No one escaped. That day Moab was made subject to Israel, and the land had peace for 80 years. Shamgar. After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistines with an ox god. He too saved Israel. That's Judges 1 through 3. Now we will move on to Luke 4, 1 through 30. Jesus is tested in the wilderness. Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, left the Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, where for 40 days he was tempted by the devil. He ate nothing during those days, and at the end of them was hungry. The devil said to him, "If you are the Son of God, tell this stone to become bread." Jesus answered, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone." The devil led him up to a high place and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world. And he said to him, "I will give you all their authority and splendor. It has been given to me, and I can give it to you. I can give it to anyone I want. If you worship me, it will all be yours." Jesus answered, "It is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." The devil led him to Jerusalem and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. "If you are the Son of God," he said, "throw yourself down from here, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you carefully, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." But Jesus answered, "It is said, do not put the Lord your God to the test." And when the devil had finished all these temptings, he left him until an opportune time. Jesus rejected at Nazareth. Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news about him spread throughout the whole countryside. He was teaching in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. He went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the parchment. He stood, sorry, he stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news for the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners, and recover the sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him. He began by saying to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him and was amazed at the gracious words that came from his lips. "Isn't this Joseph's son?" they asked. And Jesus said to them, "Surely you will quote this proverb to me, 'Physician, heal yourself.' And you will tell me, do here in your hometown what we have heard that you did in Capernaum." "Truly I tell you," he continued, "no prophet is accepted in his hometown. I assure you that there were many windows in Israel in Elijah's time, when the sky was shut for 3.5 years, and there was a severe famine throughout the land. Yet Elijah was not sent to any of them, but to a widow in Zarephath, in the region of Sidon. And there were many in Israel with leprosy in the time of Elijah, the prophet. Yet not one of them was cleansed, only Naaman the Syrian." All the people in the synagogues were furious when they heard this. They got up, drove him out of town, and took him to the brow of the hill on which the town was built, in order to throw him off the cliff. But he walked right through the crowd and went on his way. And that continues the Bible with Briscoe for today. And so therefore tomorrow we will be covering Judges 4 through 6 and Luke 4:31 through 44. Father, I just pray that this was a blessing to you, and I also pray that it was a blessing to everyone who listened, and also that they all come back tomorrow, and we will continue the Bible with Briscoe. And in the meanwhile, have a blessed day, in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. And they all said, Amen.